कहानियों का रंगमंच, the theatre of stories. So this is a format which is being explored all over the country for a very long time, and to the best of my knowledge, right from the late 70s, 80s, National School of Drama in Delhi has been exploring this format under the guidance of Dr. Devendra Raj Ankur. And while I was studying at NSD, I also had an opportunity to work with director Mr. Devendra Raj Ankur, and we explored creating this theatre of stories. So many people would like to know what is the difference when we are creating stories vis-a-vis we are creating a play. The deal is that when we are working with the theatre of stories, we do not reformat the stories. We respect the way the story has been written, and sometimes when a story, we encounter a story which has been written in third person, the story is presented in exactly the same way as it has been written. And the power of the spoken word, and with the simplest and the most basic of embellishments, we attempt to carry forward this communion. It has been an absolute success, or a successful format all over India. I am sure most of the viewers know and might have seen Mr. Nasruddin Shah, Ratna Pathak Shah, Pankaj Kapoor performing lots of stories. In Theatre Nisha, right from the onset, from the time we created the group, stories and the theatre of stories has been an integral part of us. So we have worked with stories of Satyajit Ray, for which we took permission from his son Sandeep Ray, stories of Goli Taragi, of Andal Priyadarshini, of Ismat Chugtai, and many other writers we have explored, Jaikantan, Pudumai Pittan, Sujata. So continuing in that line, we had explored stories of Shivani Gaura Pant from her novel Apradhini, which has been translated by her daughter Ira Pandey. So Apradhini, the first version which we did many years ago, was about women who have been incarcerated and are facing either the gallows or life imprisonment for the murders that they have committed. And we had a very successful run of Apradhini in many parts of India. And this year, to celebrate the birth centenary of Shivani Gaura Pant, we decided to take part 2 of that novel, which is basically stories of women whom the author meets in her everyday life, in her childhood, in her adulthood, and these 7 stories form the evening of Binnu. There are 7 stories, and each story is about a particular woman. So we have Binnu, we have Mrs. Ghosh, we have Naseem, and then we have a mother who is praying to God to make her daughter a widow, because she feels that her daughter cannot suffer the kind of torture her husband is subjecting her to. And there is Madhuben, and then there is Pagaliya. So these 7 stories constitute this new production of Binnu, and in each of these stories, the women we encounter are women who are facing issues in their life, problems in their life, specifically because of men. And the decision they take to either reject the men or destroy the men or move away from the men in order to take back their own lives, in order to take that agency back in their own hands, is what these stories are about. There are lots of songs in this play, because the author herself mentions so many songwriters and songs in the short stories, and all of that compiled together is Binnu.
Sometimes, an unexpected encounter in a strange place brings you face to face with someone from the past. You know the face, but your wretched memory stubbornly refuses to come to your rescue. Once the person disappears, it awakens mischievously, and you look frantically for the lost face. But by then it has disappeared once again. Chances are you will never meet that person again. For fate seldom smiles twice. And what you're left with is a deep sense of disquiet and regret. Last month, something like this happened to me. She was there, right in front of me. But by the time I remembered who she was, she had disappeared like an arrow in the surrounding darkness. I combed the length and breadth of the platform. But no, she was gone. Just a few moments ago, it seemed she was here, sitting under the dim light of the railway waiting room, an untidy bundle next to her on the dirty floor. But then, how could I have possibly imagined that I would meet her like this? The last time I saw her, she was getting out of a car in our porch, wearing a lace-trimmed salwar and a red kurta. Her dupatta, glinting with the mica motes that had been added to the starch, glittered with every step she took. Behind her was her aunt, Buadi, and behind them followed a train of servants. Every year after their return from Lucknow, the aunt and niece would arrive at our house in Tikamgarh, laden with gifts for us. This last gift was what we loved the most. As soon as you dissolve the iced balls in a tumbler of water, it was transformed magically into fragrant sharbat. I think the artists who made these magic balls in Lucknow have vanished now.
Thank you for participating in this communion of theatre. There are a few people we'd like to thank. One of them, most important, is Shivani Gaura Pant's estate, because they gave us permission to perform these stories, and this is a centenary year, so it's very special for us.
My readers often ask me how I know so much about courtesans, given my strict Brahmin upbringing. And I want to tell them that in our innocent eyes, these women were not courtesans. They came to meet my mother as a beloved aunt would, and that is what they remain to us, ever after. When Naseem came with her Kala to Tikamgarh for the first time, a small gold nose ring dangled from her dainty nose. Her large eyes, underlined with dark surma, made her dark pupils fairly glow. When she smiled, 2 dimples appeared on her cheeks and stayed even when the smile faded.
I'll tell Khala to bring me here more often. I love your house.
She spent the whole day with us. Naseem! Naseem! I wanted to call out to her, but my throat was so tight that no sound came out. Her youth had faded, stained and dirty. It was impossible to remember that she had once been a laughing beauty. It was obvious that the shop she had opened 32 years ago had folded up. No doubt the handsome hockey stick swinger's photograph had faded too in its blue envelope. Its scent long evaporated. Those youthful dreams had vanished. And all that was left now was Naseem's ruined beauty, swaddled in the suffocating black of a dirty burqa. Bengali poet once wrote, Manush Manushe Shikari, Nari Re Korche Beshya. Man is the enemy of man. He is the one who turns a woman into a prostitute and a man into a beggar.
Hai Ram bada dukh dina, Hai Ram bada dukh dina, Hai Ram bada dukh dina.
So when after all these years, at 12:30 in the morning, she came into the waiting room of a railway station in the middle of nowhere, and that too clad in a burqa, I had no idea that this was my Naseem.